Welcome to WatchJojo, and today we're going to be making fresh chicken soup from scratch. I have quite literally a 12-liter pot. This is my stock pot. I do all my soups in this. This guy's awesome. So what I recommend is for each one of these chickens, you want to make sure they're fully submerged. And so in this case, I'm going to go to my like 10-liter mark or so, because then I'm also going to be filling the last little bit with the chicken itself is going to take up physical volume, and the veggies I'm going to add. So you need to have enough room there, and there's no such thing really as too much water in a stock, because you're going to reduce it down until it tastes right. So let's go to the 8-liter mark. I'm feeling a little more confident with that. The sheer volume of veggies we're gonna put in this. Just gonna get that on our biggest burner here. Start boiling her up. Mix. Every part of me, after I started cooking, wants to season every time, all the time. But I try to avoid seasoning my stocks now, because what would happen is I'd season them too much, because I would add enough salt and it's like perfect, it'll be just right, and then it reduces and then it's too salty. So always don't salt your stock until you're either done or completely done, or honestly just wait until you're like using it for a soup. It's just safer that way, because it is always possible to add a little bit more salt. It's basically impossible to take it away. Stock pot is on. I have it on max. The only reason I'm doing it now is because I'm super impatient, and all I need to do is get this water to a boil so it can start breaking down the materials I'm putting into it. So once I've hit a boil, I'm gonna turn it down to a simmer, which is when you just see a couple of bubbles. You can see things moving around, but it's not like bubbling and exploding and it spitting at you if it's really angry. Another thing to help you if you are impatient like me is always put a lid on whatever you're trying to boil, because then you're locking in all that heat, you're locking in that moisture that would normally escape as steam. It's locked in and it's heating itself up at that point. So that will save you time, and time is valuable. Everything in front of me is going to get cooked to 165 plus, because all these veggies and all this carcass, I'm not keeping any of it. I don't want any of this. I want its flavors. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in that pot. I'm gonna boil the living daylights out of it. That's a lie. I'm gonna simmer it. So we're gonna cook everything. And I only want the juices. So I'm going to strain everything. Like the chicken at the end will be garbage. These carrots, I'm not even gonna peel these carrots. I'm just gonna rough chop them and let their flavors leach out, and have that all amalgamate. So in front of me, carrots, celery, onion, the base of every soup basically. All these play really nicely together. They accept flavors really nicely, and just a full-bodied vegetable flavor that just nothing else can be beat. It's practically protocol at this point. If you don't do this, you're wrong. So we're literally just gonna go for reasonably thick coins. What matters is the surface area, because that's how it's gonna have things leach out of it. Tough carrot is tough stuff. Whew. I don't usually lose to the vegetables, but we're getting there. So this guy I'm just gonna chop in half. I don't want any of the flaky skin, but everything else is golden. I'll just chop this in half. Super large dice. We're not being too picky here. Always use proper form, use the claw. Keep your hands safe. They're invaluable. Got that. once again, go medium thickness. Starting to see bubbles. I'm gonna wait a little bit longer before I start putting in anything here, but the next step will be getting everything in and just letting it slow roll for like 3+ hours. Okay, well, as long as you're being responsible. Let's get all this veg in here. Good and good for you. So now our pot is like actually starting to get there. It's like hot enough that I'm willing to start adding ingredients. So I'm adding all of this. We've got our carcass, we've got some veg. I've even thrown in the garlic. The skin doesn't matter, just like how we didn't peel the carrots, because remember, we're not keeping any of the physical bits, we just need the flavors. So let's get all this in here. Boom. Next, we'll do carcasses. You can do this, yeah, you can roast them first, but I just chose not to. This is rosemary, fresh. Best way to grab is from the top, pull down, and most of it, oh my God. Pull down, and it should just peel for the most part. A few stray leaves are holding on there for dear life, but otherwise, just get that in there. So these are my sage leaves. I'm going to rip these up a bit so that they're leaching at their flavors a little more. They're not sealed anymore. I'm going to throw that in. And thyme. I'm going to try and avoid stems if I can. Boom. Just don't want the really thick stems in there, you know? In theory, you can choose to put all your herbs into like a bag that will still leach flavors, so it's easier to get the herbs out at the end. But I'm using a pretty good strainer, so I'm not really worried about like pieces making it into anything else. Like I know I'm gonna end up with just liquid. Cool. And what else? Peppercorns. Let's do some peppercorns. So you can crush them any way you like. You could put them whole. I prefer them crushed. They'll give out a little more flavor that way. So I'm just giving these a quick whack in a mortar and pestle, but you could use a knife. Hell, you could use a hammer if you felt like it. Just get a nice crush. Add some of those in there. Do that a couple of times. Remember, we're not adding salt. We're just adding everything else. We want the juices we end up with to be super flavorful. Letting the flavors amalgamate. You can already smell all the aromas are going to be playing around in there. Cool. Now we're going to let that simmer for probably about 3 hours or so. Once it's come to like a decent boil, that's when I'll finally turn it down. But now that I've added more cold ingredients, I've actually dropped the temperature of the pot. So I need to leave it on max just while I kind of get it to that sweet spot. And I'll show you what that sweet spot should look like when we get to it. So back to the stock. It's pretty hardcore boiling now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring that down to like a 2. And you're gonna see the bubbles kind of subside, but things are still gonna be moving around in here. They're just not gonna be as crazy. And you still see some bubbles around the edges, but it's not like crazy bubbling like it was 2 seconds ago. We're also going to take off this lid because we're going to let the juices reduce. So this lid, it's done its job. So we need to strain this. So. So I've strained it once. I'm going to strain it again into a finer pot. So here have all these chunks I can't use anymore. I've gotten all the juices and flavors out of them. But this is a lot to be putting into that tiny strainer. So I'm using this thicker one to do all my big pieces. And I'm using this thinner one to finish it off. There we go. Probably like 6+ liters of chicken stock there. Use it for multiple soups. Today we were working on a fresh homemade stock to be able to use in a variety of dishes. Consider this more of kind of a prep video to allow you to do some more extravagant videos in the and dishes in the future. So we started with our broken down chicken. We boiled it. We added our herbs, we added our basic vegetables, and we let that rock for, honestly, I think we had it cooking for like 4 or 5 hours straight on just a solid simmer. We ensured that our bones broke, which was a good sign that all the marrow has been taken out of the chicken and we've gotten the value out of that. And we don't intend to use anything left from that stock, like physical, because all the juices have been taken out, all the flavors have been taken out and put into these bowls here, which I will later portion after they've cooled so I can freeze them if I have to, and they'll probably keep for a solid 5 days or so.